My husband thinks I'm just a caregiver and treats me as a poor person. Moreover, he started to show less and less love to our child, and to top it off, he said,
"You don't do housework, and you're a useless poor person. Take the brat and leave this house. I already have someone else to remarry with."
He could say such things because he doesn't understand at all what kind of person I am. But maybe he just doesn't even know it himself. My name is Jennifer. After graduating from university, I worked in caregiving. I joined a facility and spent the first few years caring for the residents. However, I was later asked to do more than just caregiving. In the mornings, I was at the site, but in the afternoons, I worked from home on the computer handling admin tasks. Frankly, my days were busy with work. Even living alone, I could barely manage housework. I did the bare minimum, cleaning and laundry, but mostly relied on side dishes sold in the supermarket. I loved my job, so I could continue without any difficulties. But as a woman, I also wanted to experience my love life. How many years had it been since I broke up with my last boyfriend? While pondering this, a friend arranged a meeting for me where I met Ethan, who would become my future husband. He worked for a small to medium-sized company, a typical office worker. I could tell immediately that his salary wasn't very high. I was busy and it was hard to find time for going on dates, but he would ask to grab a meal together whenever possible. He would take me to chain bars or family restaurants, and he never paid for everything right from the start. At least he would pay for small change or split bills. I never really went to fancy restaurants or stylish places with him. Ethan continued to invite me out because I was okay with it. After all, I was someone who usually got by with supermarket side dishes. Just having a meal prepared by someone else made me happy. Even if it was microwave-heated food from a family restaurant, I found it refreshing to eat them. Living like this, Ethan must have genuinely started to like me. Eventually, he proposed to me. However, there's a part of me that felt uncomfortable about that. But I'm busy with work and not the ideal wife a man dreams of. I only do the bare minimum in house chores and I'm usually busy with work. But Ethan said to me,
"I'll do the housework. Don't worry about it."
Honestly, I was surprised by his words. He had lived with his parents until then and probably hadn't done much housework, but since he offered, I had no reason to refuse. Honestly, his working hours were shorter than mine, and his help around the house would be a relief. With that in mind, I accepted his proposal and we got married. We couldn't find much time to look for a new place, so we moved into my $500 a month apartment, where I have been living alone. It was a bit spacious for one person, so it was convenient. Thus, I began my married life, unaware that it would be a complete failure. For a few years after moving in together, everything seemed fine. I did the cleaning and laundry in the afternoons, and Ethan would buy dinner side dishes and bread for breakfast on his way home from work. He actively did chores like cleaning the bath and taking out the trash, which was a huge help. Sometimes we even toasted with beer in the evenings. Then I got pregnant and gave birth to our child. I mainly focused solely on office work from home while raising our child. Ethan loved our child, and things seemed happy and smooth at first. But this only lasted a few years. I began to notice changes in Ethan's behavior and attitude. When Ethan would come home from work, he used to enter cheerfully saying,
"I'm home, Jennifer. I bought a lot of fried chicken today. I thought you might be tired, so I made garlic stir-fry."
And he would happily hold our child. Gradually, his cheerful voice faded, and he started muttering complaints like,
"Oh, I'm so tired today. There's nothing good to eat, and I'm just so exhausted. Sometimes I just want to relax and do nothing."
He began to pay less attention to our child. The bath cleaning and trash disposal he used to do willingly, he now does it grudgingly, muttering,
"Oh, this is so annoying. Why do I have to do all this?"
in a voice that I could barely hear. He wouldn't bother with the child even when she was crying, and instead would say,
"Hey, Jennifer, the kid is crying. Do something about it."
As if our child was someone else's child. These days kept piling up, and naturally I wasn't in a good mood. For our future, I confronted him. "Hey, is there something bothering you? If you have something to say, just say it." But his response was cold, almost indifferent.
"Huh? What are you talking about? I don't have anything to say."
Even though I knew there must be something, his dismissive answers only added to my frustration. But now, with a child involved, we couldn't afford to be like this with each other. So I tried to live consciously, avoiding fights with Ethan for the sake of our child. However, our feelings for each other drifted gradually, and Ethan's return from work got increasingly late. When I was working at home, Ethan would message me,
"I'll be late tonight, so I won't be able to prepare dinner."
This became a routine that I knew he would be late just by receiving a message from him. When asked why he was late, he'd always say,
"I told you, work is busy right now. You, who are always at home, wouldn't understand."
But I couldn't feel any truth in those words. It was obvious he had been drinking, even though he claimed to be late due to work. There were so many things I wanted to question him about, but I knew that bringing them up would lead to a big fight. So I endured, keeping my frustrations to myself. Above all, I didn't want to show this side of us to our child. Despite all this effort for the family, Ethan dropped a bomb. It was around our child's second birthday. Our relationship was already strained, but I wanted to celebrate our child's birthday properly. Suddenly he said,
"I have a company trip next week. It's for a week."
Hearing this, I almost raised my voice in anger. That next week was our child's birthday. Moreover, such company trips don't just get decided out of the blue. I was convinced he was lying. I planned to have a serious talk when he returned. I celebrated our child's birthday with love, and a week later, Ethan returned. He entered the house without a word. That day, I finished my work early to have time to talk with Ethan. "Hey, Ethan, by the way, where did you go on your trip?" His expression turned grim for a moment, and he retorted,
"Huh? Why does it matter to you? I need a break too. Being around with someone who lazes around all day is suffocating."
That meant being with me was painful for him. I couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out, "What's going on? You must not be satisfied with something, so just say it." I had reached my limit without even realizing it. But to my utter shock, Ethan started saying horrible things.
"Not satisfied? Of course I am. There's nothing but dissatisfaction. We can't even live a decent life. You hardly do any housework. Honestly, you're such a useless woman. I married you and you don't even appreciate it."
He glared at me as he said these words. These words from Ethan were nothing short of outrageous to me. Who was it that said he would do the household chores? I thought to myself. And for someone who only ever took me to family restaurants and chain bars to call our life together pathetic was just unbelievable. I was about to retort, but Ethan continued to speak, as if to deliver the final blow.
"Well, just so you know, I found another woman, and we decided to get married. Unlike a poor caregiver like you, she seems to earn well. Moreover, she's a homely and good woman. So I've decided to divorce you, who's useless and pathetic. So take the kid and get out of here quickly. I've already decided to live here with my new wife,"
he said triumphantly. Ethan was not only kicking me out, but our child as well. I was stunned that a man like him existed, treating me as a poor person. He looked down on me with a nasty smirk, probably thinking he had said his piece. But contrary to feeling indignant, my heart felt surprisingly refreshed. It was as if he finally said something meaningful. And since he said those things, I knew I couldn't stay here. And that was fine by me. So to Ethan, who was smirking contemptuously at me, I handed some documents. They included a divorce petition with my name already signed on it. "All right, then sign all of these." "It's divorce papers," I said calmly as I handed them to him. In response, Ethan said,
"Oh, you're quick with decisions. You finally did something useful at the end,"
while signing all the documents. I quietly packed my and my child's belongings, taking the signed papers from him. To this, he said,
"Well, enjoy your poor life. I'll have fun my way. Just so you know, it's too late to regret and come crying back to me,"
while laughing loudly. Well, he can laugh all he wants for now. Soon enough, he'll realize what he's missing out on. Thus, I left the house I had lived in for many years with my child. About a month later, I received calls from Ethan. I was working and ignored them initially due to the hassle, but he was persistent, so I answered.
"Hey, what's this about? Explain."
He shouted over the phone, sounding frantic. When I asked what happened, he said,
I'm being pressured by the landlord to pay the first month's rent. Why does this place cost $2,000 a month? You said it was $500.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but be astonished. Well, that house is now in your name, and it's only natural for you to pay the rent. You signed the contract I gave you along with the divorce papers. You know, that's a $2,000 apartment located in a great area, even though it's small. It's a top floor 3-room, and there's also an agreement to regularly replace the interior equipment. There's no way it could be just $500. $2,000 is only fair, don't you think? He seemed even more confused by my explanation. Well, he thought of me as a poor person, so he probably assumed $500 was reasonable. But he really only looked at cheap things. He had no idea of the apartment's real value. He must be wondering why I rented it for just $500. The reason is simple. Because that apartment is mine now. Yes, I am actually the owner of several properties, including care facilities. My grandfather first established a care facility and then used the profits to build other apartments and buildings. My father inherited the business and I joined the company. When I mentioned living alone, my father, in a way, offered me an employee discount. He agreed to rent me a room for $500. Moreover, considering his age, he thought it was time for a change in leadership and handed over the position of president to me. Thus, the care facilities and numerous properties that have been in my family since my grandfather's time all became mine. The total assets amount to $5 million. As president, I spent my afternoons at home thoroughly dedicated to accounting and admin work. You might think that office work should be done at the company, but then I married Ethan and knew we were going to have a child. Nowadays, it's easy to communicate remotely with managers of each building. So I chose to do most of my work from home. Hearing this, I could tell Ethan's voice was trembling.
You're not poor, but you're rich? Where are you living now?
Ethan seemed eager to say more, but for the moment I replied, right now I'm living on the top floor of a newly built high-rise condo. By the way, this place costs $4,000. I'm paying the full amount though. Well, it's also my property. Hearing this, Ethan was at a loss for words. It's really pathetic. He treated me as a poor person all this time, only to find out his ex-wife was actually wealthy. Then Ethan's voice weakened as he pleaded.
Hey, help me. I can't possibly pay this much. And what's this about $80,000 in compensation?
Well, $2,000 is his monthly income. It's impossible for him to pay even that, and it seems he was unaware that compensation would arise from our divorce, especially since he had been unfaithful while we were still married. I had suspected his infidelity during his so-called trips and had hired a detective. The results of the investigation were outrageous. The other woman turned out to be his new wife. Moreover, he had confessed about his infidelity himself. He had no way out now. Such a foolish man. Ethan was now pathetically begging me, even though he was the one who cheated on me. Although he begged for help, I had no intention of assisting him. He's a stranger to me now. But I did offer. Maybe I should ask our child? If our child wants to see you, I might consider it. When I said this, Ethan pleaded desperately.
Yes, please ask. Our child should want to see their father.
So I asked our child, and the response was, I don't like Daddy. He's scary. No. I let Ethan hear that directly and then ended the call with, too bad. Bye then. My child said exactly what was expected. Ethan had to leave the house with his new wife and find a new place to live. Naturally, his new wife was furious, saying, This is not what you promised. What do you mean, a cheap, nice apartment? And you were cheating? You said you were single. You earn way less than I thought, you poor man. She divorced him immediately as she said that. It was the expected outcome. He probably bragged about having a decent income, but it turned out his new wife earned more. Ethan lost his home and partner simultaneously. He had to borrow money to pay the first month's rent and buy compensation. Now he's working from dawn to dusk to repay the debt, living in a nearly run-down apartment with no bath and a shared toilet. Even his colleagues started saying,
Ethan smells a bit lately.
And so many people were talking behind his back. I hope he manages to keep his job. Not that I care, though. As for me, I'm as busy as ever with work. My child is growing up, and I've started going back to caregiving, leaving my child at daycare during the day. Sometimes I take my child to the office. When I do, my staff happily says, "Is the next generation already in training?" We have enriching conversations as I adapt to this new phase of life.
My name is Victoria. I'm currently 48 years old, a mother of a daughter. And I support a home with my husband and daughter. My daughter is in her 3rd year of high school this year and is preparing for her exams. Despite such a crucial time, my daughter was troubled by something unbelievable. Recently, she started to dislike being at the dining table with me and my husband, William. Instead of childishly saying no, she would say, "I want to study," and retreat to her room. Noticing Laura's change, I discussed it with William. But he seemed unconcerned about her change, saying, "She's just trying hard to study, right? And isn't it okay not to worry?" So, when William wasn't around, I decided to talk to Laura. "Hey, it seems like you've been avoiding me and your father lately. What happened?" When I asked, Laura hesitated a bit before asking, "Mom, do you like Dad?" I couldn't understand why my daughter would ask me such a question. William and I had an arranged marriage. Our parents were acquaintances, and his parents insisted on the marriage, which felt somewhat coerced. I thought William seemed kind when I first met him, so I decided to marry him. It wasn't a love marriage, but we have been together for 25 years as husband and wife. So, I believe there is proper affection between us. I think I do like him. Then, I won't say it. It would hurt you, Mom. Hurt me? What do you mean? Even when I asked, Laura didn't tell me anything. I couldn't press her further, so I stopped trying to talk more about it. However, the situation didn't improve. Gradually, I realized that Laura wasn't avoiding us, her parents, but specifically her father, William. William might be hiding something. And Laura might know about it, avoiding William for that reason. The secret might be something that would hurt me if I knew, and Laura couldn't tell me. I had to find out if William was hiding something. "Hey, William. Are you keeping a secret from me?" When I asked him, William said, "What? Me, keeping a secret from Victoria? That's not possible." However, while saying he wasn't hiding anything, he scratched his nose. This has been his habit when lying since long ago. I never pointed it out, thinking it was convenient to know, and it came in handy now. William was definitely hiding something. I became certain of this when I checked the bank book and saw money withdrawn from our joint savings account. About $3,000, I guess. Naturally, I confronted William about it. "Hey, $3,000 was withdrawn from our joint savings account. What's this about?" That? You know how we send $1,000 every month to my parents, right? But last month, my dad got a serious backache. They needed more money, so I gave them $3,000. Why didn't you tell me about this? You could have told me when I was sending the money. To this, he replied, "I didn't want to worry you." At this moment, he scratched the tip of his nose with his fingertip. He was lying. I don't know if the lie is about giving the money to my father-in-law and mother-in-law, or about my father-in-law having a severe backache, or about not wanting to worry me. So, I contacted my father-in-law after a long time. "Hello, Father. It's been a while. I heard from William that you had a severe backache. Are you okay?" Victoria. It's been a long time. Severe backache? I've never had such a thing. Maybe you're mistaken? More importantly, I want to see my granddaughter. Can you come here soon? Well, Laura is currently studying for university entrance exams. She's busy right now. What are you talking about? Laura is a girl. She doesn't need to go to university. Having an education doesn't add any value to a woman. Ultimately, Victoria, you don't have a male sibling. So you took our William as a son-in-law, right? No, our company is. Anyway, don't send Laura to college. I was talking to the son of a local landlord recently. I want to arrange a meeting for them. Can you bring her over? What? An arranged marriage, for Laura? What else could it be? I was shocked. Everything my father-in-law was saying was off the mark, but most of all, I was surprised that he was trying to arrange a marriage for Laura without discussing it with me. Her mother. It was the first time I heard about him thinking of marrying Laura to someone local. Laura is still in her 3rd year of high school. And I have no intention of arranging a marriage for her. Laura herself wants to go to university, and I can't trample on her wishes. I will not let Laura go through an arranged marriage. Please don't proceed with this without our consent. Huh? What are you talking about? A woman has no value if she doesn't marry a man. Victoria? You might have been abandoned by your parents if you hadn't married William. No, that's not true. Please stop. It's because of such disrespectful attitudes towards women that Laura doesn't want to visit her grandfather. Actually, both Laura and I find my father-in-law difficult. He is a man who strongly believes in male superiority and has always seen me only as a woman whose father earned as a company president. Also, my father used to say that a woman can't be a president and asked me to marry. However, he now recognizes my abilities, and I succeeded him as the president of the company. William works as an employee in my company. However, he seems to have told his parents that he is the president, perhaps due to his male pride. I have never corrected this as it might complicate things. He probably thinks that the $1,000 I send to his parents every month is coming from his pocket. For the past 25 years, I have been sending $1,000 to his family every month. It seems we need to have a talk about our family's relationship soon. But for now, the issue is William's secret. His father didn't have a severe backache. And it's possible that the story about giving $3,000 was also a lie. Concerned, I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate William's actions. The report from the detective agency came quickly. It appears William is having an affair. He was seen going to a hotel with a woman much younger than him, going on dates, and even bringing her to our house when Laura and I were not around. The $3,000 withdrawn from our joint savings account was probably spent on that woman. That's when I thought of something. Maybe Laura witnessed William's affair? But she couldn't tell me because she thought it would hurt me. That might be the situation. When William said, "I'm going out for drinks with friends," and returned home late, I decided to talk to Laura again. Laura, did you know about your father's affair? How did you know, Mom? Laura indeed knew about William's affair. When she realized I knew, Laura started crying uncontrollably. Then, she told me how she found out about William's infidelity. Actually, I came home early once because I was feeling unwell. And I saw Dad's shoes and a strange woman's shoes in our house. When I entered the house, I saw Dad in the living room with a woman I didn't know. After witnessing her father's affair, Laura, despite feeling unwell, went to a nearby park and sat on a bench until it was time to return home. It's unacceptable for a father to expose his daughter to his affair and leave her outside unwell. I made a certain decision. A week after Laura told me about William's affair, William said he was going on a trip with friends. I didn't say anything about the trip, but I brought up the matter of sending money to his parents. About the money we send to your parents. I've been doing it for 25 years, every month, $1,000. I'm thinking of stopping it. As soon as I said this, he widened his eyes and panicked. No. If I stop sending money, I'll lose my position. But it's not your earned money, right? How is it to send the money I earn every month to your parents? I'm your husband. Having a husband is good for appearances, right? Think of it as a salary for me playing your husband. $1,000 a month just for being a husband? Yes, that's right. Anyway, I need you to continue sending $1,000 every month. He wouldn't reconsider about the money. That's fine. I decided to cut ties with his family and him. Then came the day William left for the trip with his friends. I knew he was going with his mistress, but I saw him off with a smile. As soon as he left, Laura and I started taking action. His trip with the mistress was for a week. I knew exactly where William and his mistress were. So, Laura and I checked his actions while moving forward with our plans to move out. Our new location is only known to my parents. I had already consulted with them, and they promised to fully support Laura and me. William's parents will surely side with him, and his father will try to get Laura at any cost, even using her for an arranged marriage. I heard that his father promised the landlord's son to arrange a marriage with Laura, and would receive a substantial amount of money in return. It's unforgivable to use Laura as a means to get money. His parents probably thought marrying me, the daughter of a company president, would ensure a comfortable life for William. But they must be disappointed that it didn't bring as much money as they expected. That makes sense. After all, I'm the one earning as the president, not William. Then, I stopped the monthly payments I had been sending, and disappeared without letting William or his parents find me. A week later, William, apparently back from his affair trip, contacted me in a panic. What's going on? I can't open the door even with the key. Oh, we've moved. So, we're not going back to that house. What? Moved? Where to? I'm not telling you. I've sent your belongings to your parents' house. Please sign the divorce papers I included and submit them. What? Divorce. He seemed very surprised. Does he not realize that his affair is wrong? I sighed. You did something that led to divorce. I've sent a registered mail too, so go to your parents' house and check it. I said that and quickly hung up the phone. The next night, William, having checked the divorce papers and registered mail at his parents' house, contacted me. What is this all about? Compensation for an affair. And a divorce. I've been working hard every day as your husband. Are you throwing me away? William was the one who neglected Laura and me by having an affair. Yet, he had the nerve to blame me. You know, having an affair is wrong. And you even brought your mistress home. And to make things worse, our sensitive daughter witnessed the affair. That's why Laura was troubled. Exposing a child to such a filthy scene is outrageous. Wait. Laura saw it. Why? She saw you at home with her when she came back early because she was feeling unwell. Poor girl. She had to leave the house and wait on a park bench until it was time to come home. That's. William seemed to realize, finally, as a father, that what he did was wrong. However, realizing it doesn't heal Laura's hurt feelings or regain my trust. If you want custody, we can fight it out. Of course, Laura doesn't want to be with you. And I have a better income and take care of the house, so if we fight, I'll get custody. That's. Then, maybe we should cool our heads a bit. I think we need some time right now. If you don't come to the discussion, don't expect any reduction in the compensation. I hung up the phone. I thought there would be no more talking until the meeting with the lawyers. But this time, it was his father who called me. Hey. What do you mean by moving out and leaving my son behind? The nerve of you. Living off my son's earnings and then leaving. and now you're talking about divorce, as if a woman can just decide that. The idea that a woman can't initiate a divorce is so outdated. I sighed in exasperation. Perhaps sensing my frustration, my father-in-law got even more agitated. I've always thought this, but your attitude is terrible. You're nothing but a woman whose only merit was having a father who's a company president. It's only because William married you and became the president that you have your current status. Enough, please. I am the president. William is just an ordinary employee. You should stop thinking that women are in a weaker position. If you keep flaunting such outdated views, people will only see you as an embarrassment. My father-in-law was momentarily speechless at my words, probably surprised to be challenged by me for the first time. I never wanted to interact with him and only tolerated him for William's sake. But now, with the betrayal and impending divorce, I see no reason to hold back. About the monthly payments, William doesn't have the earnings to send $1,000. He always complained unless he could save half of his income and use the other half for himself. What? But William is the president. That's what I am saying. I am the president. Have you ever checked our company's website? My name is there as the president, not William's. It's true, that can't be. Why isn't William the president? Originally, I did consider making William the next president since I thought a man might be more suitable. However, William turned out to be surprisingly incompetent at work. Everything he handled went poorly, and my father decided to appoint me, the more capable one, as his successor. Wait. What about the payments then? Without them, we can't live. You should manage to find $1,000 on your own. I don't care. Goodbye. I blocked my father-in-law's contact. Apparently, both my in-laws were not working and relied on their pension and my payments for living. Furthermore, after I explained to the landlord who expected Laura to be married off, my in-laws got a severe scolding. They broke a promise and are now ostracized by their community. During the discussion about the divorce, my in-laws came asking for Laura's custody, but I firmly refused. We settled the compensation and child support, and William had to take out a loan to pay the lump sum I demanded. Additionally, I fired him from the company. His attitude towards other employees had become arrogant, being the president's husband, and he was shirking work onto others. When he paid the compensation and child support, he pleaded, "Listen, I broke up with my mistress, so I'm all yours now. Let's get back together." I looked at him coldly and said, "Oh, you mean your mistress Anna? She went back to her hometown. She regretted being involved with an older man like you and was about to sue for compensation. When I told her she wouldn't have to if she dumped you after the divorce, she happily agreed." His face went pale, and he stood there frozen. Of course, I had no intention of getting back together with him. Months later, his family home was put up for sale. They're all working hard to pay off the debt. With the stressful father gone, Laura has regained her bright smile. She finished her exams and will start college in the spring. I plan to enjoy a happy life with my daughter and mother for a while.
Unexpectedly discharged from the hospital, I returned home to find my husband lounging arrogantly, and next to him was a woman with a triumphant expression.
A woman who can't even bear children is useless. Let's get divorced. Haha. Actually, you've wasted my time, so you should go pay me $50,000 in compensation.
I had long been fed up with my husband, but I never thought he would be this slow. However, the thought of being able to leave such a husband for $50,000 seemed almost like a wish granted. Well, not that there's any reason for me to pay him compensation. Fine by me. Here are the divorce papers. I won't pay any compensation, but I agreed to the divorce. I'm utterly sick of coming home to a man like him. And turning my back on my husband, who was signing the divorce papers with a smile, and the woman who was cheering him on, I started packing my things. I suppose they both feel on top of the world right now, but they will surely come to regret this soon enough. My name is Mary. I have always been an energetic person. At my company, I was always active, contributing ideas, participating in projects, and studying. I wasn't just focused on my work. I wanted a fulfilling personal life as well. I attended mixers arranged by friends and went to marriage parties, making efforts towards marriage. As a result, I met a man named Richard.
I fell for that personality of yours.
Richard seemed to truly love me and often took me out on dates. After a year of dating, we decided to get married. His parents lived in Texas, so when we went there to meet them for marriage greetings, they welcomed me with cheerful smiles. Richard's mother couldn't move around well freely, so considering she didn't want to travel far from Texas, I suggested to Richard that we hold our ceremony there.
Huh? Go out of our way for my mom? I don't think that's necessary. It's her fault that she can't move around freely. We don't need to compromise because of that.
Maybe Richard, living with his parents, knew his mother's condition wasn't as bad as I thought, but his words upset me. I believed it was natural to show consideration for someone with issues like hers. Yet Richard showed no consideration. Instead, he bluntly said that since it was his mother's personal issue, we shouldn't bother. However, not wanting to argue before our important wedding, I refrained from going against him. I said, "Well, my parents have never been to Texas, and I'd love to take wedding photos with the beautiful nature in the background." Upon hearing these reasons, Richard agreed, and we decided to hold the wedding in Texas. His parents realized that it was because of me, not Richard, that the wedding was held in Texas. They thanked me instead of Richard. Richard's mother, holding my hand, thanked me.
If it were just Richard, he probably wouldn't have thought of having the ceremony in Texas. Thank you for considering me, Mary.
She also complimented how beautiful I looked in my wedding dress. Richard's father, standing next to his wife, also expressed his gratitude.
If the wedding had been in Seattle, I was planning to just see the photos, but since it was here, I really wanted to attend. Thank you so much, Mary.
Well, it seemed Richard never really understood why his parents were thanking me. At that time, I didn't fully grasp why Richard showed no consideration or empathy towards his parents, but I would come to understand this as we began our married life. You know that type of person who just looks good on the outside? They act like nice people at work or with friends, but once at home, they become lazy, careless, or arrogant. Richard was exactly that type. Right after we got married, the previously kind Richard stopped helping at home, leaving all the household duties to others. Having work and often being entrusted with major projects, I said to him, "Hey, I'll be coming home late for a while. Could you please make dinner?" Richard, frowning reluctantly, replied,
Huh? Why do I have to make dinner? If you're working late, that means you're doing overtime, right? That just proves you're incompetent. Don't make me clean up your mess.
Excuse me? Clean up my mess? Indeed, if one is given a day's work and fails to complete it by the end of the day, it might be due to inefficiency. However, in my case, the new project involved meetings with overseas clients, and due to time differences, these meetings happened after regular hours. Even as I tried to explain this, Richard let out a heavy sigh and said,
I never knew you were such an incapable woman. Can't believe you can't handle both household and work tasks.
While I was taken aback by his words, he continued,
Knowing you, you probably think you're capable and meddle in other people's tasks, causing trouble, right? Given your nature, I guess being nosy is just a part of your daily routine.
In reality, I am in a position to delegate tasks to others, but it seemed that Richard didn't understand that at all. I remember talking about my job to his parents when we visited them in Texas. Apparently, Richard didn't remember any of it. His parents, living far away, occasionally called to check on me and remembered what I had told them about my job. I couldn't understand why Richard, living with me, showed no understanding of my work. However, Richard, convinced he was right, said,
If your work is making you come home late, then prepare dinner before you leave or leave money for me to order takeout.
As it was almost time for me to leave for work, I didn't want to get into more trouble, so I left $20 on the table and departed. I thought I heard him say,
"That's not enough,"
from behind, but $20 should be more than enough for one person's takeout. What was he planning to order? Anyway, I had already realized that Richard pretended to be nice outside, but acted as if he was the boss of the house. He never intended to understand my job, presuming from the start that
women are useless at work, and you, unable to do household chores, are even more incompetent. An incapable employee who can't even serve tea properly. You must be poorly paid.
In his mind, I am the superior one in this house. The incapable Mary is the opposite. He had an immature mindset, but I had no intention of entertaining his immature behavior. Even when he said,
"A useless woman like you just troubles the company. Why don't you quit and take care of the house?"
I would respond, "Can you save your nonsense for when you're drunk? If you don't intend to understand my work, just keep quiet," and quickly left for the office. However, I didn't plan to continue this life for long. Having gathered various pieces of evidence, I was ready to make my move when an incident occurred. I collapsed. Working hard and being busy in my personal life recently, I got sick and had to be hospitalized. There seemed to be a problem with my appendix, requiring surgery and a long hospital stay. Lying on the hospital bed, I sighed and turned on my laptop. When I was admitted to the hospital, my company had contacted Richard, but he never visited me, nor did he send a single concerned message. When I played a video on my computer, it showed our living room, where Richard and a woman were cozily sitting on the sofa, watching a romantic movie like a couple. They were sitting very close to each other. This video was of our current living room. It seems Richard hadn't noticed the surveillance camera installed in our home. I had originally installed the camera because I wanted a dog, despite us not having kids after being married for a while. However, the camera was soon used for a different purpose. The purpose of the surveillance was to monitor Richard. While I was busy with work, he was bringing another woman into our home. This woman, seemingly declaring war against me, or rather, Richard's wife, deliberately left traces of her presence. She left her cosmetics on the sink and left her long hair in the bathtub drain. At first, I thought maybe she was unaware of Richard's marital status, but considering the deliberately placed cosmetics and my discarded toothbrush, it was clear she saw me as a threat. Given the obvious signs of cohabitation in our house, I doubt she mistook Richard for a bachelor. During my hospitalization, I received no calls or texts from Richard. It seems he was busy playing house with his mistress at home. However, I didn't confront him directly over the phone. I was steadily gathering evidence to bring Richard down. The timing of my hospitalization was good, as I was transitioning my work responsibilities to others and planning a long leave from work. From the hospital bed, I efficiently proceeded with my plans. First, I received the results of an investigation I had requested from a private detective, revealing the identity of Richard's mistress. Her name is Mina, a beautiful woman who seems to be a model. She apparently has other boyfriends besides Richard, though he seems oblivious to this fact. Next, I contacted both my in-laws and my own parents. After the divorce revelation, I'm sure Richard will soon realize his predicament. I decided to lay the groundwork so that he couldn't rely on anyone else. My in-laws, already fond of me, were saddened to learn of their son's betrayal and declared they would disown Richard. My parents readily agreed to store some of my belongings for a while, and just as I had sorted everything out, it was time for me to be discharged. Before leaving the hospital, I sent Richard a message. "I'm being discharged tomorrow." It was read, but remained unanswered. He must have been too busy with Mina to bother replying. At this point, his attitude no longer surprised me. Rather, I sighed at the realization of how poor my judgment had been in choosing a man like Richard. After divorcing Richard, even if I resumed looking for a partner, I doubt my own judgment. Despite these thoughts, I headed home to settle things with Richard. When I got home and said, "I'm back," Richard didn't come out of the living room. I thought he might not have noticed my return, but as I entered the living room, there he was, lounging on the sofa with Mina looking triumphant by his side. It seemed they were eagerly waiting for my return. As soon as I walked in and saw them, Richard, with a smug look, said,
"A woman who can't even bear children should just get divorced. Ha ha. Actually, you wasted my time, so you should pay me $50,000 in compensation."
I had long been fed up with Richard, but never imagined he would be this low. However, the thought of being able to leave such a husband for $50,000 seemed like a blessing. Not that I had any reason to pay him compensation. And to think he brought up the reason for divorce as inability to bear children? How foolish can he be? It's truly saddening to realize how bad my judgment of men has been. Fine by me. Here are the divorce papers. Regaining my composure, I spoke. I won't pay compensation, but I agree to the divorce. I'm utterly sick of coming home to a man like him. Richard signing the divorce papers with a smile and Mina excitedly cheering him on didn't faze me as I began packing my belongings. When I finished packing, Richard and Mina came to me with the completed divorce papers. Richard, looking self-satisfied, said,
Now I'm rid of a useless woman like you. I'm marrying this beautiful Mina. Once we're married, we'll surely have kids right away.
Mina responded with a giddy, Oh my, Richard, you're so bold. It was a conversation I could only think of as, get a room. I ignored them, quickly received the divorce papers and let in the movers I had called in advance, promptly moving out my belongings. At this point, Richard seemed puzzled.
Wait, why are movers here already when we just talked about divorce?
But Mina's excitement about finally being alone and hugging Richard made him quickly forget his doubts. Thus, I quickly moved out, but I wasn't going to just leave Richard and Mina for them to get away with this. A month after my divorce from Richard, I started receiving incessant calls from him early in the morning. Actually, I had already bought a new phone, transferring all contacts except Richard's to it, leaving the old phone at home while I went to work. When I returned home, there were over 100 missed calls. I stopped counting after 100. I thought, if he's trying this hard to contact me, why not try another way? But when he called again, I finally answered. On the other end, Richard sounded almost tearful.
Hey, what's this all about?
I knew he had many questions, but I wasn't sure what he wanted to know most, so I asked, What do you mean? He replied,
You're demanding compensation from me? I got a content-certified mail. Aren't you supposed to be the one paying me?
I was dumbfounded. He had blatantly cheated during our marriage, so I thought he'd understand the concept of paying compensation for his infidelity. Apparently, he didn't grasp even that basic idea. You have to say sorry and pay compensation for cheating, I explained.
But it's your fault, isn't it? You couldn't have children.
I sighed deeply. I'm not infertile. Remember when we went to the hospital together? It turned out you were the reason we couldn't have kids.
Huh?
Did you think infertility was only a woman's issue and you just ignored the doctor's explanation? It seems you didn't even understand why I took you to the gynecologist for tests.
So, it's my fault? But that's strange. Mina says she's pregnant.
I shrugged my shoulders. According to the detective's investigation, Mina's cheating on you with other men. The father of her child is probably someone else. Besides, I can't imagine she'd marry you.
Huh?
Well, you don't have money. Richard seemed confused by my words.
What are you talking about? Now that the useless you are gone, my life will be even more prosperous. I've been living well so far, so now it will be even better.
You seem to have forgotten, but I was a manager at my company, led major projects, and I'm about to become the president of a newly established company. My salary is much higher than yours, and I was the one paying for our takeouts because you always made a fuss. The luxurious life you've been living was thanks to me. I've taken on various challenges and advanced in my career, so now my annual income is $800,000. Unaware of all this, Richard had asked me for a divorce. His salary has been the same since we got married, a mere $2,000. Considering Mina was involved with several other men, I couldn't see why she would choose to marry Richard. Richard, unaware of the reality, pleaded.
This can't be. Mary, it's not too late. Let's get back together.
But I just snorted and said, Who would want to live with someone as incompetent as you? I have no intention of supporting someone who can't do housework or hold a job. He had called me incompetent, but the real incompetent one was him. I certainly had no plans to support such a person any longer. Afterward, he apparently stormed into the company where I used to work, not realizing I was already the CEO of another company. When he demanded,
Bring out Mary,
at my old company, they told him I wasn't there anymore. Refusing to believe them, he caused a scene and even broke a window. Eventually, the police were called, and he was taken away. Now he owes not only compensation but also damages for breaking the company's window. How pathetic. This incident became the talk of his workplace, and he's been talked about behind his back by his colleagues. Despite the negative attention, he continues to work there because of his financial obligations. He had to move out of the house we shared and now lives in a company housing. When I demanded compensation from Mina as well, I informed her parents and her numerous boyfriends about her actions. She ended up getting sued for marriage fraud, and she was severely scolded by her family. Now that her family is monitoring her every move, she's focusing on her job. As for me, I check the compensation payments every month and have decided to take a break from relationships, focusing even more on my work than before.
Howard arrogantly confronted me with an ultimatum. A useless wife who can't even do household chores. I'm divorcing you. I'll leave the kids with you. Understood. Here's the divorce papers. Without hesitation, I thrust the divorce papers at Howard. My name is Lindsay Walters, and I am 35 years old. I have a family of 4, including an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. I'm technically a housewife, but during the day, I engage in stock day trading. It seems to suit me well, as I sometimes make about $2,000 a day. My annual income might be around $400,000. I also run a blog about stock trading, which has quite a few readers. My husband, Howard, knows I trade stocks, but probably doesn't think I earn that much. He likely assumes I'm just breaking even or at a loss. I met Howard through my university friend, Courtney. When we first met, I thought Howard was interested in Courtney. So we remained good friends during our university days. Years after entering the workforce, Howard confessed to me, saying, "Actually, I had a crush on you from the start." After that, he persistently asked me out. And I eventually gave in to his persistence and started dating him. At that time, I wasn't seeing anyone else, and Courtney said, "You two make a great couple. Go for it." So I started a serious relationship with him. We got married soon after starting our relationship. I got pregnant unexpectedly. It led to a hurried wedding. Before I knew it, I was 35. Caught up in parenting without having experienced a sweet honeymoon period. When we were dating, Howard was kind to me and treated me well. On events like Christmas, Valentine's Day, and my birthday. He always booked fancy restaurants and gave me presents and bouquets. Howard works for a major logistics company and claims to be a competent employee on a fast track to promotion. Lately, he seems to be struggling at work, returning home in a bad mood and raising his voice, scaring the children. After venting, Howard would calm down. "Sorry. It's not your fault, Lindsay. I love you." Then, he would hug me. I must have had my shortcomings too. I'm sorry too. I try to encourage Howard, but sometimes it backfires and I step on a landmine. Don't worry about it. Everyone has off days, and it's better not to stress too much. What's with that tone? It's easy for you to say, treating it like it's someone else's problem. I intended to encourage him, but it often sounded sarcastic to Howard. This kind of thing is truly exhausting and draining. When I talk to Howard, I have to carefully choose my words, watching his mood. Naturally, our conversations decreased. I have a lot I want to discuss about parenting and the house, but it's difficult. A gap formed between me and Howard, making the atmosphere in the house distant. That's when I got in touch with Courtney. Courtney has always been selfish and greedy since our student days. Always wanting what others have. She was also good at flattering men. She had taken away several acquaintances' boyfriends with her cunning. Courtney treated me normally because I wasn't interested in men and didn't have a boyfriend. Surprisingly, Courtney was straightforward, and we got along well. I thought she was my only female friend from university. So, I decided to consult with her. I thought Courtney was the best person to ask about men. Well, that turned out to be a mistake. After a long time, I contacted Courtney and arranged to meet up again. After a long time, I met Courtney, who hadn't changed since our student days. She still dressed and made up in a way that would appeal to men, with the same old mannerisms. I was surprised by her lack of domesticity, but then learned she was divorced and single, without any children. As soon as I sat down, I quickly started consulting Courtney, which turned more into venting than asking for advice. Courtney empathized with my story. "Lindsay Walters, the atmosphere gets so heavy when it's just the two of us. That must be tough." "I got it, I'll talk to him." "Leave it to me." I decided to rely on Courtney. She confidently said, "Just wait and see, like you're on a big ship," patting her chest with confidence. About a week after meeting Courtney, Howard started coming home late. Initially, he said he was going out for drinks with colleagues about once a week. But soon, he began returning late more frequently, 2 or 3 times a week, without contacting me. A month after consulting Courtney, Howard threw an unbelievable remark at me as he was leaving for work. Courtney contacted me. "She said she wants to talk, so I'm going to meet her. Don't bother with dinner for a while." What did Howard mean by, "don't bother with dinner for a while"? What do you mean by "for a while"? Howard smirked for some reason. "But you consulted Courtney about me, right? So, I'm going to take my time and talk to her every day." Why was Howard looking at me triumphantly? His eyes seemed to say, "I'm going to cheat openly, so don't complain." I didn't mean to give Courtney a reason to have an affair with Howard. Howard left with a half smile, leaving an ominous remark. "You set this up, remember that." As I spent my time anxiously, Courtney finally called. Sorry. I was meaning to contact you. What's with this impeccable timing?" Even though I had been eagerly waiting for Courtney's call, it only increased my anxiety. Courtney's voice sounded carefree, almost as if she were humming. I felt awkward and replied with just one sentence. "I trust you, Courtney." After hanging up, I sighed deeply. I wanted to trust Howard more at that moment. But Courtney's tone made me feel uneasy. Perhaps that's why I spoke to Courtney in a way that was like setting a boundary. It was my way of asking her to make me believe in her. Despite my worries, Howard returning late became the norm. The children also got used to Howard not being around. At first, they kept asking, "Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy?" But now, they don't even ask. They were never close to Howard, who was always harsh towards me. Then, one day, a decisive event shattered my earnest hope. It happened when I was about to send Howard's shirt to the cleaners and checked the breast pocket for anything inside. There was a lipstick mark on the inside of the shirt's breast pocket. Why would there be a lipstick mark there? It's a spot that wouldn't get marked unless it was intentional. I remembered telling Courtney that Howard had a habit of stuffing receipts into his breast pocket. Moreover, the lipstick color matched the one Courtney wore that time. What a thing to happen, this was Courtney's declaration of war against me. I shook my head. No, this isn't right, this was Courtney's declaration of victory. I remembered what Courtney used to say during our student days. "When I take what I want, I make sure the other person knows. I make them understand that I've made it mine." Courtney had said this when she took a man from another woman we knew. At that time, Courtney had a proud and ecstatic expression. Each time, I warned Courtney, "Someday, this will come back to haunt you." A chill ran down my spine. Courtney, who had a history of stealing other people's boyfriends, was notorious for her bad choice in men. I had warned her numerous times as a close friend. However, I never imagined I would become the target of her conquests. I was greatly disturbed and nearly panicked, but I tried to keep my composure. Holding Howard's shirt, I headed to the dry cleaners. As I waited at the traffic signal on the main street, a young boy, looking about elementary school age, walked towards me with an unsteady gait. He didn't seem to be playing around, and I wondered if he was feeling unwell. The main street was busy with large trucks and construction vehicles, and the wind pressure as they passed by was intense. The boy stumbled as he neared me. Unfortunately, a large construction vehicle passed by, and the boy was almost pulled onto the road by the wind pressure. Instinctively, I reached out to him. "Watch out," thought. I pulled the boy onto the sidewalk, swapping places with him. A large rear wheel of the construction vehicle loomed in front of me. I felt a huge impact, but I have no memory of it. When I regained consciousness, I saw an unfamiliar ceiling. There was also the smell of disinfectant. My head was foggy, and I couldn't muster any strength in my body. I made eye contact with a woman in a white uniform who seemed to be a nurse. The nurse looked into my eyes and then hurried away with the sound of her shoes echoing. Shortly after, a man in a white coat with a stethoscope approached me. He appeared to be a doctor. The doctor-like man asked, "How are you feeling? Do you know your name?" He seemed concerned about my memory, but I assured him, "I know who I am, and I remember things from the past." The doctor smiled reassuringly, nodded, and left. I felt my consciousness fading and closed my eyes. When I woke up again, my consciousness was clearer, but my body was in pain. Everything hurt, but my toes felt especially painful. The ceiling was different from before. There were sounds of people around. I must have been moved while asleep. A nurse appeared with a man. The man, seeing me, started to cry and deeply bowed his head. Confused, I looked at the nurse. The nurse informed me, "This man is Alex Morris, the father of the boy you saved." I felt relieved in my heart, thinking, "So he's safe. Thank you so much. I'm terribly sorry for causing you such a severe injury." Alex kept bowing and apologizing repeatedly. I was just glad the child was safe, and I harbored no resentment for my injury. Alex's child, who I pushed out of the way, had only suffered a minor scrape on his knee. He was fine and had gone to school that day, planning to visit me later. I made a request to Alex, to which he happily agreed. A nurse came and said that the doctor would explain to the family. I gave Howard's mobile number for them to contact, as my smartphone was shattered. All I had with me was the shirt for the dry cleaners and my wallet. After a while, Howard arrived. He glanced at the nurse beside me and then exaggeratedly showed his concern. "Are you okay?" "I came as soon as I finished work." "The kids are with your parents." Though he seemed concerned, I wished he had come before finishing his work. And I wasn't the only one who thought so. My parents' house was quite far from here. I won't be able to see my children for a while. Howard always plays the part of a loving husband in such situations. His actions are always guided by how others perceive him. Just as Howard arrived, the doctor came to explain. The doctor gave me a devastating diagnosis. Unfortunately, we had to amputate both legs below the knees. I couldn't comprehend what the doctor was saying. My feet were in pain. How could I have no feet if they hurt? I was filled with disbelief. But my toes hurt. The doctor explained that it was phantom limb pain. He said it was a symptom that would trouble me going forward. Tentatively, I lifted the blanket to look at my feet. Indeed, there was nothing below my knees but the sheet. More than panicking, I was bothered by Howard's smirk when the doctor explained this. Courtney entered the room right after the doctor left. She was the last person I wanted to see right now. I was more concerned about these two than my own legs. "Oh dear, poor thing. Did you get my message?" Courtney looked down at me with a sneer, as if she was above me. "The message must be the lipstick-marked shirt." I sighed heavily. You two must be really close to plan this together. I spoke with a tone of disgust. Courtney's timing was too perfect. She must have been waiting in the hallway. She appeared at the most impactful moment. Her calculation was so blatant that I was astounded. I addressed Howard and Courtney with a laugh. Were you watching from the hallway? I could see your skirt hem from here. Courtney glared at me furiously, her lips pressed so tightly they turned white. Shut up. Howard arrogantly gave me an ultimatum. A useless wife who can't even do household chores. I'm divorcing you. I'll leave the kids with you. Understood. Here's the divorce papers. I immediately handed the divorce papers to Howard. He must have been surprised. He started this, yet here I was, handing him the divorce papers. Why do you have divorce papers? You can download divorce papers, you know? Didn't you know that? I printed them at the convenience store downstairs. Howard, stunned, took the divorce papers. You're a defective person who can't cook or do laundry. I'll demand $30,000 in compensation. Why was Howard demanding compensation? Just to be clear, what about property division? Howard sneered at me. Don't be ridiculous. Why should I give any property to a defective person? I thought I had one. I clenched my fist subtly, keeping it hidden. Okay. That's fine, Howard. Courtney, make sure you don't regret it. Howard had never seen me speak so coldly. He was frozen. Courtney looked displeased, biting her nails. I glared at Howard and Courtney, speaking calmly and emotionlessly. I appreciate you coming, but you're both a nuisance to everyone. Please leave. Howard, restraining Courtney, who seemed about to retort, left the room. I clutched Howard's shirt. This was the beginning of my revenge. That evening, Alex and his elementary school-aged son came to visit me. I'm relieved your son is safe. I had to soothe Alex, who kept apologizing profusely. Then, his son solemnly apologized too. Don't worry, it's okay. I responded with a smile. Thank you for the PC and mobile Wi-Fi. And for the printing too. I could print the divorce papers thanks to Alex. Alex works for a well-established import company, and his father is the president. It's a family business, so Alex is likely to become the president soon. Alex's wife passed away due to illness when their son was 3, and since then, Alex has been raising him alone. His son suffers from severe hay fever and isn't very physically strong, making him introverted and overly considerate of others, often suppressing his own feelings. Alex handed me a piece of paper with his contact information. I was surprised when I saw it. Are you related to Courtney, by any chance? The address was the same as Courtney's family home, and her last name was also Morris. You know Courtney? She's my sister. The boy I had saved was Courtney's nephew. I was struck by how small the world seemed. Courtney was the daughter of a company president. I was shocked to realize she was a wealthy heiress. Alex looked at me with concern. Did Courtney do something to you? Alex knew about Courtney's reckless behavior with men, and had cleaned up her messes since their student days. He suspected Courtney's bad habits might have played a part. When he heard about my need for divorce papers, I hesitated to talk about Howard, but Alex asked his son to buy some juice and snacks from the store. Once his son was out of earshot, I started talking about Howard. Alex listened intently, his nods and posture reflecting his kind and serious nature. And I found myself sharing everything that was on my mind. So, for now, this shirt is my only piece of evidence. Alex looked sad. I'm sorry my sister has caused you trouble. I don't know what to say. Alex felt as if it was his fault, but it wasn't him, it was Courtney and Howard who were to blame. When Courtney got divorced, there was a lot of trouble. I thought she had learned her lesson, but... Alex clenched his fists tightly, hitting his thigh with his bald hand. The stories I heard about Courtney from Alex were beyond my imagination. Every time Courtney snatched someone's boyfriend, their parents had to apologize. There were incidents involving married men. And not just once or twice had they paid compensation. The worst was when Courtney was married herself, and her affair was with another married man. The man's wife was pregnant at the time, leading to a significant scandal. Ultimately, it was resolved with a substantial compensation payment. But Courtney was nearly disowned, with a warning that one more issue would lead to being cut off from the family. From what I heard, Courtney hadn't changed at all. She hadn't learned her lesson. Alex offered to help me with my revenge against Howard and Courtney. It seemed strange that the victim and the perpetrator's family would join forces. But Alex couldn't forgive his sister. Alex was adamant about disowning her, a decision discussed with their parents. Given Courtney's attitude, she probably never imagined her family would take such drastic action against her. Howard likely had no idea that Courtney's family was on my side. First, we needed to gather more evidence of the affair. Alex arranged for me to meet the company's legal advisor. This lawyer had helped clean up after Courtney's past exploits. Knowing everything about her, which was reassuring. I couldn't wait to see Courtney's surprised face. I decided to move to a private room. It would be problematic to proceed with my plan around other patients. The private room was more expensive, but I had savings from day trading. A few days later, Howard and Courtney came. They reported that they had submitted the divorce papers. Howard was surprised to find me in a private room. But I casually said I didn't want to bother others with my groaning. Howard smirked darkly, perhaps imagining the severity of my condition. Stupid, really. Jumping out like that and losing your legs. Courtney, far from sympathizing, began to torment me. Really, Lindsay, you've always been so unlucky. Howard and Courtney must have expected me to burst into tears. Courtney even started to pull out a handkerchief from her handbag. I kept a composed face and spoke coldly and sarcastically. Right. I was unlucky to think of Courtney as my best friend. And even more unlucky to marry Howard through her introduction. I sighed. Howard and Courtney looked as if they had bitten into a bitter bug. They were confused that I didn't cry but instead fought back. You don't work, can't do household chores, I have no use for a defective person like you. Pack your things and leave the house as soon as you're discharged. Howard raised his voice, perhaps feeling outmatched. Understood. But since I've become a defective, I'll have to ask a service to help me. Howard looked taken aback, perhaps expecting me to cry and plead. Do you understand? You're being thrown away and kicked out of the house by me. How will you survive? Howard seemed to be feigning concern now. I struggled to suppress my laughter at his confusion. I don't think I owe you any worry as a stranger now. Howard blinked in disbelief. He and Courtney must have expected me to cry and apologize, but they were left swinging at air. They left the room, shoulders slumped. Make sure you pay the $30,000 in compensation. I muttered to myself as I heard Howard's parting shot, the real hell awaits you too. 2 months after the accident and after rehabilitation, my discharge from the hospital was decided. Howard had informed me that he remarried Courtney, a matter of no concern to me. I executed my plan against them. Then, on the day of my discharge, Howard called me. At first, I ignored the calls, but they kept coming from morning to night. There were 17 missed calls. Thinking it was time, I answered the phone. As soon as the connection was made, Howard's angry voice filled my ears. Finally answering, huh? What's the meaning of this? I switched to speaker mode. You seem to be in a hurry, what happened? I spoke deliberately slowly and calmly. Howard seemed irritated by my attitude and began to rattle off quickly. I have a lot to say, starting with the house. A real estate agent just came and said the lease is canceled, and I need to leave immediately. They even said to leave the furniture and appliances behind. What's going on? I responded with laughter. Oh, that's because the apartment is in my name. We're divorced, so I just canceled the lease. The cancellation had been arranged a little earlier. Today was the eviction date. The real estate agent must have been surprised that the move wasn't in progress. Moreover, the apartment come furnished. Nothing could be taken out. After the call ended, Howard and Courtney arrived at the hospital. They both rushed into the room, out of breath from the hurry. Howard immediately confronted me. Don't make me laugh. In your name? How could you, who don't work, sign a lease? Howard couldn't believe my words, thinking of me only as a housewife. Sorry, I didn't mention it, but my annual income is $400,000. I mentioned the name of a blog that Howard loved. He was stunned and speechless. When I was doing stock trading, you used to say, "You're doing it wrong. You should do it this way, right?" All that was just regurgitated from my blog. I had to struggle to keep from laughing. Howard remained silent as usual. If you think it's a lie, just open the blog and check my profile picture. I handed Howard the PC displaying the blog. Wow. Howard's scream echoed in the hospital room. Courtney slumped to the floor. I had earlier changed the blog's profile picture to the lipstick-stained shirt. This must have shattered Howard's little pride. After all, I was the stock trading blogger he respected. Moreover, Howard had lost his home and a significant amount of money. Without property division, my savings remain mine. Then, Howard, as if turning over a new leaf, began to apologize and grovel. Courtney remained dazed, looking like an empty shell. I'm sorry. I apologize for everything I've done. Please forgive me. Howard was on his knees, continuously apologizing. Of course, I wasn't about to change my attitude just because of that. I had planned for this day. I had already decided on a place to live, which was being remodeled for accessibility. The lawyer had gathered evidence of the affair. Courtney probably didn't intend to hide it. SNS interactions, GPS movement history, all were easily obtained. Of course, the lipstick-stained shirt was also solid evidence. With this evidence, I filed for compensation against both of them. To ensure Alex's family wouldn't be troubled. They were preparing a disinheritance document as a notarized deed. This meant Courtney couldn't rely on her family home for compensation payments. She had to pay it herself. Then, my children arrived. They had been looked after at my parents' house. But they brought them to coincide with my discharge. My children hugged me. They didn't seem to recognize the man as Howard. Howard looked at the children, smiling tearfully. The children looked at Howard as if he were something filthy. I had told them about Howard via video call. Originally, the kids weren't fond of Howard, so being separated from him now was no problem. In fact, they must feel refreshed without the scary person around. When it was time to leave the hospital, I stood up from the bed. Howard and Courtney were shocked to see me standing. It was no wonder. They thought I would be wheelchair-bound for life, but here I was, standing. I was wearing prosthetic legs. I could walk without a cane thanks to the prosthetics, as I had only lost my legs below the knees. I had gone through incredibly painful rehabilitation for this. Leaving a stunned Howard and Courtney on the floor, I walked out of the room, holding hands with my children. I had heard from Alex that Howard was about to switch jobs to his company. Probably, Courtney was plotting to make Howard the next president. Alex was the interviewer for the final interview. Howard was denounced for his affair on the spot and left in disgrace. Howard's outburst when he quit his previous job had spread in the industry. making reemployment difficult. I learned this from Alex. As for Courtney, she apparently broke up with Howard right away. A broken man held no interest for her. But Courtney, cut off from family support and burdened with compensation payments, was struggling financially. She had even borrowed from disreputable sources. Recently, she suffered from debt collectors, as reported by my lawyer. I confirmed the deposit of the compensation and no longer cared about what happened to them. It was good I didn't send the shirt for cleaning. If I hadn't saved Alex's child, my legs might have been fine. But if I had sent the shirt for cleaning, I would have had no evidence against Howard and Courtney. Life is unpredictable. Losing my legs was unfortunate, but the happiness I gained from it was immense. Planning this revenge helped me avoid flashbacks of the accident and the sense of loss from losing my legs. I'm grateful to Alex. Without him, I couldn't have accomplished all this. Alex's child has become attached to me and gets along well with my children. Recently, he even said, "I want you to be my mom." Alex is kind and calming. Being with him brings peace to my heart. I look forward to seeing him and hope he feels the same. Catherine, congratulations, congratulations. Thank you so much. Oh no. This is indeed a joyous occasion. Let me have a turn as well. The in-laws were both eagerly taking turns holding my sister's daughter, as if it were their own grandchild. Congratulations, Catherine. Thank you, Tom. Here, please accept this $3,000 as a congratulatory gift for the birth. Relatives were buzzing in surprise at the amount. It was certainly an extravagant sum for a congratulatory gift. I still think this is strange. I mean, give your own child a congratulatory gift of $3,000. If you put it that way, it sounds like this child is mine. The in-laws and Tom panicked at her words, but I responded firmly. Huh? Why? Isn't this child your child? Why would you say otherwise? Huh? My words caused a commotion in the room celebrating the birth. My name is Emily, 27 years old. I work as a programmer, mostly from home. I used to work for a major IT company, but when I got married 3 years ago, I became independent and started freelancing. Hey, could you please tell your parents to let us know in advance if they're coming over? Why? I have work to do, and besides, if they show up suddenly, I can't even offer them proper hospitality. I also want to tidy up the house, so can't they stop coming over unannounced? While conveying my discomfort about their visits to Tom in a roundabout way. He doesn't take it seriously. Come on, it's family, and nobody cares if the place isn't perfectly tidy. Far from it. I hate to admit it, but I lean towards being a minimalist. I can't relax if unnecessary things are lying around. My wardrobe is minimalist, and almost all of my books, except for reference materials, are in digital format. My surroundings are genuinely minimalist. On the contrary, Tom is a cluttered person. Even when packages arrive from online shopping, he leaves the cardboard boxes lying around, and if I try to clean up or throw them away, he gets angry, claiming that he still needs them. We currently live in an apartment with individual rooms. My room is, as I described, almost devoid of belongings and well-maintained. But Tom's room is beyond help. Things piled up, and dust collects without any cleaning. If I try to clean, he gets upset and tells me not to enter his room. Despite all this, my in-laws suggest that if I can't keep the place clean, I should quit my job and focus on housework. Why is Tom's room so messy? Emily, why don't you clean up that area? Tom won't let me clean up. I want to clean too. Excuses won't do. The cleanliness of the house is the responsibility of the homemaker. If you can't fulfill that responsibility, then quit your job and focus on homemaking. It's a futile conversation like this. It seems like we're being accused of bullying you. They have that kind of expression. These modern wives are a real problem. What we're telling you is the homemakers know how. You should understand it properly. If Emily-san understood it properly, we wouldn't need to say these things. She's acting as if she's the victim. It's so pathetic. Tom is right there beside me, just nodding along, not defending me in any way. According to my in-laws, the second chapter of the Homemaker's Know-How is to bear an heir as soon as possible. In the past, wives were told, marry for 3 years, and if you don't have a child, leave. They were divorced if they couldn't have children quickly. Come to think of it, it's been almost 3 years since you got married. I still think it's better for you to quit your job and focus on homemaking. As it is now, it seems like Tom is lacking. It's probably just about her wanting to spend money. Women's earnings are not significant. How long does she plan to keep being selfish for a little pocket change? They continue to pressure me to quit my job. Finally, at this point, Tom says this. Well, women work quite a bit nowadays too. I think I can let her continue a bit longer, right? Honestly, Tom is too kind. That's why Emily-san keeps taking advantage. Shouldn't you be a bit stricter? That's right. We're teaching Emily-san the homemaker's know-how in your place. How about that? Look at that dissatisfied face. After giving Tom a little lecture, my in-laws heaved a sigh of relief. Finally finishing the homemaker's know-how. Please, I also want to maintain a good relationship with my parents. Please. Please, as requested. I'll work harder to get a raise, so please, until then. I reluctantly remain silent, as Tom pleads with me desperately. But there is no sign of his salary increasing at all. My patience is wearing thin. During this period of frustration, an incident that heightened my in-laws' criticism occurred. They overheard something by chance. I have a younger sister who is a year younger than me. Her name is Catherine, and she's 28 years old with 3 sons. My sister married early, immediately after high school. She married a classmate, and it was what you might call a shotgun wedding. However, she divorced her first husband when their first child was still young. After that, she had a second shotgun wedding followed by another divorce. Her third marriage was also a shotgun wedding. And now she lives with her third husband and their 3 children. Honestly, my sister and I don't get along very well. To be frank, we have a strained relationship. This is mainly due to my sister's bad behavior and selfishness. My parents have had a difficult time because of her actions. I don't know the exact reason for her divorces, but I suspect it might be related to her infidelity. I also have a hunch that my parents may have paid her alimony on her behalf. However, since my parents never talked about it, I haven't dared to ask. So, I try to avoid getting involved with my sister as much as possible and keep my distance. But, coincidentally, when my in-laws were visiting our home, my sister decided to pay a surprise visit. I was planning to leave my kids with mom and the others, but they're not home. Can you babysit for me instead? She suddenly said this and brought her 3 children to our place. It happened right when, luckily or unluckily, my in-laws were in the middle of lecturing me on the homemaker's know-how. Oh my, Emily's older sister? My 3 lovely children. Well, what a lively bunch of children you have. I envy you. Oh, hi there. I'm Catherine, Emily's sister. She's been taking care of me, you know. For some reason, my sister and my in-laws seem to have hit it off. Emily, I had no idea you had such a splendid older sister. Why didn't you tell us? Indeed, What a surprise. She doesn't look like a mother of 3, so young and beautiful. Thank you so much. I couldn't quite understand why they were getting along so well, but the conversation was lively. So, what do you do for work, older sister? I'm a homemaker. That's wonderful. Nowadays, many women talk about working and neglecting their homes. But that's quite impressive. My sister hasn't worked a single day since graduating from high school. During her first marriage, her husband's parents managed to get her into a college that required minimal effort, taking care of her son along with her. 3 years later, after her first divorce, she had another child with her second husband. Following her second divorce 4 years later, she quickly remarried her current husband and had a child. She never had the intention or the capacity to work. Emily, maybe you should learn something from your older sister. Absolutely. You should take a page out of her book. It seemed like the homemaker's know-how was about to include a new chapter, learn from your sister. From that day on, my sister started visiting our place frequently with her children, often in coordination with my in-laws. Honestly, Tom should have married Catherine San. Then, these cute kids could have been our grandchildren. Indeed. At this rate, our family line will end without an heir. My sister seemed to enjoy being praised by my in-laws, and she would receive some pocket money before leaving. This pattern continued, and during all of this, the care of her children was always handed over to me. Emily San, make sure to take good care of the kids. That's right, you should awaken your maternal instincts. Exactly. It can be good practice for you too. After enduring this several times, I had reached my limit. I work from home and I'm not just playing around. I've tried to explain this multiple times, but I was being ignored. Enough already. Tell your parents not to come here. I appealed to Tom, but he just looked bothered. Your sister visits too, doesn't she? It's weird to tell only my parents not to come. That's why I don't want anyone to come. This is ruining my work. Should I quit my job then? That's not a good idea. Tom clearly understood that if I quit my job, we wouldn't be able to sustain our current lifestyle. Perhaps that's why his actions this time were swift. I don't know what he said, but both my in-laws and my sister stopped visiting our place entirely. It seems they are meeting somewhere else. And I know this because my in-laws call me to praise my sister. Catherine San is truly remarkable. Despite the trend of having only one child, she has 3. She even says she wants more children. Indeed, you should learn from your sister. It seems they decided to give me these sarcastic comments after meeting my sister. For me, as long as they don't come to my house, I don't care. I can easily brush off these phone calls. However, during that time, Tom's behavior started to become a bit strange. He was coming home late and going out on weekends more frequently. I'm working hard too, that's why I'm busy. So there's that. While he said that, I began to doubt whether he was truly busy with work. He would sneakily check his phone with a smirk and make phone calls outside the house. Somehow, I had a suspicion that the person he was communicating with might be a woman. After this continued for a while, I received a message from my sister. She was pregnant with her 4th child. We should go and celebrate too. It's indeed a joyous occasion. We should go and celebrate as well. With even my in-laws expressing the desire to attend, I made a suggestion. If we're going to go, why don't we all go together? Our parents, your brother's parents, relatives, let's have a grand celebration. That sounds like a good idea. Emily, you occasionally say good things. Let's celebrate it grandly. So, we waited for my sister to recover and for the baby to settle down. And we planned a celebration in a private room at a restaurant. The participants included the main couple, the baby, my brother-in-law's parents. My brother-in-law's grandparents, my brother-in-law's sister and her husband, my younger brother's wife, our parents, and our couple, 17 people in total. For some reason, with my in-laws included, my sister decided to leave her 3 older children with a babysitter for this event, which was also my suggestion. With so many adults gathered, the kids might get bored. This time, let them stay home, and we can celebrate separately with them. Of course, I'll cover the babysitter's fees as part of the celebration. My sister gladly accepted the proposal. The private room at the restaurant was beautifully decorated with congratulations, and they had taken great care to ensure that the family could celebrate together. As expected from a top-class restaurant, it was the perfect setting for today's event. One by one, everyone offered their congratulations, and my sister was overjoyed. Seated next to her, my brother-in-law, despite feeling a little out of place at such a joyous occasion, still had a smile on his face as he expressed his gratitude. "Catherine, here's a gift." "Congratulations. Thank you very much." "Oh no. It's truly a joyous occasion. Let's see, shall I have a turn holding her?" My in-laws acted as if it were their grandchild, taking turns to hold my sister's daughter. "Congratulations, Catherine." "Thank you, Tom. Here's a $3,000 gift for the birth." The entire extended family murmured in response to that amount. It was no wonder, as $3,000 was an exorbitant sum for a birth gift, especially coming from Tom. "Thank you." My sister accepted the envelope of money as if it were entirely natural. But the relatives couldn't contain their surprise. My brother-in-law also wore a perplexed expression, comparing my sister's response to Tom's gesture. "Tom, this is really too much for a gift." "It's okay, please accept it." "But, this is a bit." My brother-in-law looked completely at a loss. "It's a gift from Tom's heart, please accept it." "Exactly, don't hesitate." My in-laws encouraged my brother-in-law to accept the gift with smiles. But he remained motionless. Then, Tom turned to me and said, "Tell your brother-in-law to accept it from you too. Come on, quickly, tell him not to hesitate." "Is it really okay not to hesitate?" "Yeah, of course." Since the instruction was not to hesitate, I decided to speak up. I also find it strange. After all, gifting $3,000 to your own child seems unusual. My words caused even more commotion among the relatives. "What are you saying? That child is Catherine Sand's husband's baby, isn't it?" "Yes, that's right." "What nonsense are you talking about?" If you phrase it like that, it sounds as if this child is mine." My in-laws and Tom were flustered, but I responded firmly. "Huh? Why? Isn't that child your baby? Why would you say it's different?" "Huh?" My words created a huge commotion in the celebration venue. "Hey, what are you saying? It's all right, there's no need to hide it." I said this and pulled out a bundle of photos from my bag. "Here, everyone, take a look." I scattered the photos like confetti. "Wait a minute. What are you doing?" The photos clearly showed Tom and my sister engaged in activities that were anything but innocent. To put it bluntly, they were pictures taken in the midst of an affair. Why are these photos here? Seriously, why would you do something like this? My sister and Tom were in a panic, trying to pick up the photos. But there were dozens of them, and it was impossible to gather them all. My brother-in-law also picked up a few. "Don't look." My sister snatched the photos away from my brother-in-law, but it was too late. My brother-in-law had seen the evidence of his wife's infidelity. Not only my sister and Tom were flustered by this situation. For some reason, my in-laws had turned pale and were frozen in place. "Thank you so much, father-in-law and mother-in-law." "What for?" I thanked my in-laws with a beaming smile. Thanks to both of you, I was able to take these photos. I'm truly grateful. The two of them looked at each other, still not understanding what was going on. Ever since my sister and my in-laws began communicating outside of the family, Tom's behavior had become increasingly strange. While I had considered the possibility due to the uncanny timing, part of me couldn't believe it. To think that my husband could be involved with my sister in such a way was almost unthinkable. I had noticed all the typical signs of an affair, and I had been considering how to obtain evidence. But I realized something strange was happening. When my in-laws started giving strange phone calls, Tom started acting strangely, and my sister began bringing her children over to our house. So, I decided to confide in a detective agency, explaining the situation, and arranged for them to watch Tom and my sister on the days when my in-laws called. I had a rough idea of the cycle of these events, and if I had hired a detective to watch them constantly, it would have cost a lot more. Thanks to you, I was able to save a significant amount on the investigation fees. I'm truly grateful. I genuinely thanked my in-laws from the bottom of my heart. Catherine, what on earth is going on? This isn't what it looks like. What do you mean by, and not what it looks like? And what's the meaning of that child being Tom's? My brother-in-law was trembling with anxiety. Catherine, isn't it time to come clean and admit the truth? Yes, it's probably best to tell the whole truth now. Huh? Tom jumped in surprise at his parents' words. Emily, it's all your fault.
Yeah.
It's all your fault. My in-laws spoke to me with mean-spirited expressions. I know, you've been going to the gynecologist, haven't you?
Yeah.
They said you have difficulty conceiving, right? To keep that a secret, you're truly a terrible person. Tom was deceived by a wife who couldn't have children, and that's why he married you, isn't it? My in-laws questioned Tom, but he remained silent. Tom is kind-hearted, so even at this point, he's still protecting such a wife. You should tell the truth now, there's no need to hold back. My in-laws then proceeded to reveal the truth. They explained that they had been displeased with me for a long time, because I never quit my job and showed no signs of wanting to have children. When they pressured Tom to divorce me, he responded by saying, "Just give her a little more time. Emily wants children too, she's been undergoing fertility treatments. That's why I tolerated it, thinking that perhaps we were still planning to have children." However, it seemed like there was no progress on that front, and Tom repeatedly asked me to quit my job, but I showed no intention of doing so. But then, I met Catherine. She's already given birth to 3 children. That's right, she's proven she can have children. So, I asked her to have a child with Tom and help us out. This revelation shocked everyone, including myself. So, that's why my sister and Tom got involved in this affair, to help you with your plan. Indeed, and if she had a child, we were planning to divorce you and have Tom remarry Catherine. You are no longer needed here. Separate from Tom quickly. It was unbelievable how they thought of such a plan. Yes, of course, I'm also planning to separate from Tom. A man who would cheat with my own sister is of no use to me either. You're just making excuses. This is great, Tom. Now you can live with Catherine and your daughter as a family of 3. My in-laws were overjoyed, but for some reason, Tom turned pale and trembled. I didn't have any intention of separating from Emily. What? What are you saying? Unexpectedly, my words left my in-laws in shock, and Catherine shouted. That's right. If I were to separate from Tom, I wouldn't have a comfortable life either. Tom continued to tremble without being able to respond. In reality, Tom had a very low salary. He worked for a company where performance-based pay meant that if he didn't improve his sales performance, he could be fired at any time. That's not true. Tom is an employee at a major manufacturer, right? We heard he makes a good salary. He's a contract worker at a subsidiary of a major manufacturer. Huh? That was the truth. Tom struggled with his job search after graduating from college and ended up working as a contract worker at his current company. While he was promised a chance to become a regular employee if his performance improved, the company was essentially a black company, and that promise was hardly kept. It's unfortunate, but there were options like immediately finding a new job or making an effort to improve his performance. Yet he chose to complain without taking any action. I was also told that I worked for a major manufacturer, but it's not like I chose to marry and settle down with the company. And I believed in his words when he said he would work hard to become a regular employee. What? So, you were lying? You liar. My sister slapped Tom Hardy, and he tried to escape. But he couldn't evade it and received a solid slap. I thought you had a high-paying job because of you. You deceived me. What are you going to do about the child you fathered through deception? Don't worry, it's definitely not Tom's child. Huh? I decided to tell everyone the truth. I was indeed undergoing infertility treatments. However, it wasn't me who couldn't have children, it was Tom. That was the truth. Blamed by my in-laws for not having children, we underwent tests. And there was nothing wrong with me. When Tom was tested, it turned out that he had a nearly infertile body. But there's a certain male celebrity who underwent quite intense treatments and managed to have a child. I suggested that Tom should consider it, but he refused, saying he didn't want to go through the pain of those treatments. My in-laws, my sister, my brother-in-law, and all the relatives stared at Tom, who remained silent, with disbelief. If that's the case, then whose child is the one Catherine gave birth to? Normally, it would be assumed to be my brother-in-law's child. However, considering my sister's situation, I can't say that with absolute certainty. My words left my mother-in-law sitting down on the floor, completely dejected. My father-in-law turned red and trembled with anger. But perhaps there's a slim chance that it could miraculously be Tom's child. Tom seemed to think so as well. That's why I think it's a good idea to get a DNA test done to clarify this once and for all. That's right, I want to know whose child it really is. No. It's obviously your child. We're not doing any tests. My sister desperately protested against my brother-in-law's cold words. But it was too late for such pleas to work. And so, the celebration for the newborn child ended in turmoil. I didn't want to show scenes like this to anyone. That's why I didn't bring my nephews to this place. Regardless of who the father was, my nephews were innocent. I couldn't do anything to hurt them, so I left them out of it. Fortunately, the child my sister gave birth to turned out to be my brother-in-law's. I breathed a sigh of relief. This child was innocent as well, no matter what. Upon learning the results, my sister defiantly refused to get a divorce and insisted on staying married to my brother-in-law as before. However, the fact that she had an affair with Tom was undeniable. My brother-in-law decided to get a divorce and take custody of his newborn daughter and the nephew just above her. My sister resisted vehemently, but I provided my brother-in-law with the results obtained from the detective agency I had hired, leaving her with no choice but to accept the divorce. This is all your fault. Because of you, I'm getting divorced. They're asking for alimony and child support from me. What are you going to do about it? My sister stormed into my place and yelled at me, but I was the victim here. I had no reason to accept her complaints. If you want to talk, please do it through a lawyer. I'll also be claiming alimony from you, sister. What? Of course. When you have an affair with someone else's husband, this is what naturally happens. Didn't you realize that? My sister made a lot of noise. But when I told her I would call the police if she continued to act out, she begrudgingly left. Come to think of it, I had a misunderstanding about my sister's first divorce. I thought our parents had paid the alimony for her. As it turns out, both of her divorces were caused by her infidelity. In reality, rather than paying alimony, our parents had helped her shoulder the burden of the alimony by offsetting it with child support. Both husbands wanted to take custody of the children during the divorces. But my sister, motivated by the child support, vehemently opposed and refused to give them up. As a result, she didn't receive any child support. However, in this latest divorce, both of my nephews ended up being taken in by their biological fathers. Both of my nephews turned out to be their biological father's children, which was fortunate. It could be considered a miracle for my sister. And perhaps the heavens recognized that the children were innocent. In exchange for giving up custody of her son, my sister now finds herself in a position where she will have to pay child support. It's possible she may also have to pay alimony now that the circumstances have changed, as she previously offset child support. I heard that there would be further discussions since the conditions had changed. My sister lost all her children and the person who supported her. Now, she faces the prospect of paying for their upbringing. Having never worked a day in her life and living as she pleased, the consequences were finally catching up with her. She pleaded with our parents, but this time, they were resolute and didn't forgive her. They told her that her previous actions were a result of their poor parenting. And they cried as they advised her to find a live-in job and work diligently to turn her life around. However, it's unclear how much of this actually got through to my sister. After all, she found out the truth later and came to me crying for help. My sister and my parents, like me, believed that Tom had a high income. So, they were willing to discard my brother-in-law, a regular salaryman, with the intention of remarrying Tom once she had children. That's the confession they made. But it was all a lie. I was deceived too. In other words, I'm the victim here. The real high-income earner was you. So please help me, I'm begging you. That's right, my family thought we were living well because of the money I earned. I work as a programmer and have received considerable recognition. The work from my original company was more of a token of appreciation. And my actual income came from the sales of the software I developed personally. It generated a substantial monthly income without any effort, used by people all over the world. However, I kept it quiet because Tom was crying and pleading with me. It was a matter of his pride as a man. Looking back, I can't recall a single thing about Tom that was worthy of my affection. I couldn't help but feel that Tom's flaws were somewhat endearing. But now I've realized that he's just a fundamentally flawed person. Tom didn't want a divorce and cried while resisting it. Perhaps he thought that, just like before, he could cry and be forgiven. The one I truly love and cherish is only you. Oh really? You loved me so much that you cheated with my sister. No, it's not like that. My parents pressured me, and I wanted a child. Tom made unbelievable claims and used them as excuses for his infidelity. So, I genuinely believed it was my child. I forgot that I had infertility issues. If I had remembered, I wouldn't have cheated. It was truly exasperating. Tom seemed to attribute his actions to a man's pride, and couldn't believe in anything else. Even that $3,000 they gave me, my parents told me to give it to you. So I did it as a mere formality. I didn't really celebrate or anything. I haven't paid a single dollar. Tom proudly asserted such an embarrassing statement. It wasn't the kind of thing a grown man should say. I felt utterly drained, and all the energy seemed to leave my body. There was no point in continuing this conversation. That's enough. So, are you forgiving me? There's no way. I'm saying I don't want to hear anything more from you. Use a lawyer from now on. I sent Tom away from the house and had no intention of letting him back in. I'll just send all that trash piled up in my house to my in-laws. And they can pay for the shipping, of course. Afterward, the divorce proceedings went smoothly, and I finally became a free woman. Of course, I made sure Tom paid the alimony in full. He asked to make the payments in installments. But I couldn't trust him at all, and I knew he'd stop paying halfway through. When I mentioned taking him to court if he couldn't pay all at once, he somehow managed to come up with the full amount in a lump sum. Maybe it was paid by the in-laws, but money is money no matter where it comes from. So I'll accept it gratefully. Now, I won't have to hear any more sarcastic remarks from my in-laws. Or listen to Tom's pitiful complaints. As for Tom's subsequent actions, I didn't want to know. But perhaps the world is small, or maybe it's just that you can't get away with doing bad things. A friend of my brother-in-law's sister who lives near my in-laws spread the word about what my in-laws did, and it seems to have spread like wildfire. Now, my in-laws are famous as the demon couple who arranged an affair between their son and their daughter-in-law's sister. And Tom is known as the good-for-nothing who cheated under his parents' influence, making it impossible for them to hold their heads up in the neighborhood. In addition, news of Tom's actions reached his workplace, and he had a hard time working, eventually resigning. I heard that he's currently mostly holed up in his parents' house, struggling to find a new job. But all of this doesn't matter as long as it doesn't come into contact with me. These are people who have nothing to do with me anymore. I tidied up my house with a feeling of relief. As planned, I packed up Tom's belongings one by one and decided to send them to my in-laws' house. I couldn't help but hum a tune during this enjoyable task. It's so refreshing. I looked around at the house, which had become much emptier, and thought how nice it was to be able to get rid of things I didn't need. It's said that when you get rid of unnecessary things, new things come into the empty space, along with good fortune. Although my house originally had plenty of space, perhaps the circulation of luck had been disrupted due to that one room, that one person. I opened all the windows in my house. It's winter now, and the cold wind swept through the house, but it helped chase away the remaining bad air. In the completely empty room that used to belong to my now-forgotten ex-husband, I took in a deep breath of fresh air. In the midst of the still chilly breeze, I felt as though I could already smell the scent of spring. There was a sense of an upcoming bright season just around the corner,